Loving a narcissist is like tearing your own heart apart, one hopeful thought at a time. Leaving them isn't about winning, it's about reclaiming yourself. And the most devastating thing you can do to a narcissist? Not hating them, but no longer needing them. This video is not about revenge. It's not about teaching them a lesson. It's about doing something far more powerful and far more stoic. Walking away in silence, with dignity, in a way they'll never forget. No screaming, no closure speeches, just presence, then absence, just clarity, then distance. Stoicism doesn't teach you to fight for control. It teaches you to control what you can, your mind, your energy, your exit. And when you apply that, you don't just leave the relationship, you leave the game. That's what breaks them. Because narcissists don't suffer when you cry. They don't suffer when you fight. They suffer when they realize they can no longer trigger you. When the hooks no longer hold. When your silence becomes proof that you've outgrown their chaos. That's when they spiral. Not because they lost you, but because they lost their grip on you. If you've ever been trapped in that cycle, love, hope, hurt, repeat, this is the turning point. In the minutes ahead, you'll learn how to leave with strength, how to stop feeding the drama, and how to disappear without apology. Not to crush them, but to choose you. This is Victory Stoic. If you're here, it's because you're done being someone else's emotional supply. So like the video. Share it with someone who needs this more than they'll ever admit. Subscribe so you stay grounded in power, not pain. And in the comments, drop your command. Something like, "No more hope where there is no respect," or "My silence is my exit." Now let's begin, not by reacting louder, but by stepping back with a presence they never expected and will never forget. Number 1, you don't need an apology to leave. You need clarity. Waiting for a narcissist to apologize is like waiting for a wolf to feel guilty for hunting. It's not going to happen, not because they can't say sorry, but because when they do, it's not real. It's bait. It's another hook wrapped in softness, a tactic to reset your suffering and keep you in the loop just a little longer. That's why walking away doesn't start with hearing, "I was wrong." It starts with accepting, "They won't be." This is where most people stay stuck. They know the relationship is toxic. They know they're shrinking. But they hold on, just long enough to get one last confession, one last breakdown, one last moment where the narcissist says, "You were right. I was wrong." But that moment never really comes. Or worse, it comes scripted, manipulative, empty, and you fall for it again. Here's the truth. You don't need closure from someone who used you. You don't need their remorse to reclaim your peace. What you need is clarity, the kind that comes from seeing reality as it is, not as you hoped it would be. The Stoics understood this deeply. Cleanthes, a lesser-known but sharp Stoic philosopher, once said, "He who expects gratitude from the ungrateful is already bound." That principle applies here. Expecting accountability from someone who thrives on manipulation means you've already surrendered your peace to them. Stoicism teaches, own what's yours, drop what's not. And their apology? That's not yours to wait for. Let's talk about Emma, 42, from Colorado. She spent 6 years in a relationship where every argument ended the same way. Silence, guilt-tripping, a vague half-apology, and a night of love-bombing that made her question everything. She left 3 times, came back 3 times. The 4th time, she didn't wait. She didn't text. She didn't hope. She told herself, "I don't need him to admit it. I just need to admit it to myself." And that's when the break stuck. Because clarity is a decision, not a feeling, not a moment of drama, just a quiet, firm understanding that says, this dynamic no longer deserves space in my life. And the longer you wait for someone to give you permission to walk away, the more power you hand over to the person who already stole too much of it. So what can you do right now, today, if you're still tangled in this? 1. Write the apology you wish they'd say, every word of it. Then read it out, loud, and realize that even if they did say all of it, you'd still feel empty. Because words don't heal betrayal, action does, and they won't change. 2. Reframe your need for closure. Replace, I need them to understand, with, I need to understand that I'm done. 3rd, stop checking their behavior for signs of growth. They are not your project. They are not your student. Your peace cannot be on hold while they maybe evolve. 4. Look at the pattern, not the moment. The apology that comes after 10 betrayals isn't growth, it's maintenance. It's part of the control cycle. Recognize that. Psychologically, this is backed by a phenomenon called intermittent reinforcement, a behavioral pattern where unpredictable rewards, like occasional affection or apologies, keep you hooked far longer than constant mistreatment ever would. Narcissists use this without even knowing the term. They keep you emotionally addicted by dropping crumbs of hope, just enough to keep you chasing something that never fully lands. That's why Stoicism is your way out. It strips away fantasy and brings you back to what is. Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Their apology? Not in your control. Your decision to leave? Always. You might be thinking, but won't it be easier if they just admitted they were wrong? Of course. But that would only make your exit more comfortable, not more necessary. You're not staying because of love anymore. You're staying because of unfinished business. And that's the trap. There is no end screen, no neat resolution, only your decision to stop playing the part. So from here, you stop asking, will they ever understand what they did to me? And you start asking, what happens if I stop needing them to? You'll find freedom, you'll find focus, and you'll find out that you never needed closure. You just needed the courage to accept the truth. Because healing doesn't begin when they say sorry. It begins the moment you stop waiting. Number 2, don't announce your exit. Leave quietly and completely. You don't owe a narcissist a warning. You don't need to prepare them, explain yourself, or give them one last chance. Because if they cared about losing you, they wouldn't have put you in a position where you had to leave in the first place. A narcissist doesn't panic when you say you're leaving. They panic when you actually do, without explanation, without tears, without giving them the stage to perform on. They're not afraid of abandonment. They're afraid of irrelevance. That's why silence cuts deeper than confrontation ever will. Announcing your departure gives them time to shift, to manipulate, to love bomb, to bait you into doubt. They'll say just enough of the right things to confuse your clarity, delay your action, and reset the pattern. They've done it before, and if you announce it, they'll do it again. Stoicism teaches withdrawal, not noise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." In this case, stop telling them you're done. Be done. Stop drafting your goodbye text. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. There is no ceremony in leaving a cycle that should have ended long ago. There is only choice, then action. Consider Ben, 45, from San Diego. After years with a covert narcissist, he realized the breakups only gave her more leverage. Every time he told her it was over, she flipped the script. Tears, blame, half promises. He'd stay another 6 months, until one day, he didn't say a word. He simply left, changed his number, packed in silence. No note, no door slam. She called every mutual friend to paint him as cold and cruel, but she never got what she wanted. His reaction. That, more than anything, drove her insane. This works because narcissists feed on your responses. Even your anger feeds them. Your need to explain feeds them. Your final long text feeds them. They only know they've lost control when you stop feeding the system. Want to practice this shift? Start today with 3 steps. 1. Go gray rock in all remaining communication. Flat tone, no emotion, no curiosity, no explanation. 2. Stop telling mutual friends your plans. Narcissists often use third-party contacts to reel you back in. Go quiet, not loud. 3. Make your decision a behavior, not a statement. Don't say you're done. Be done. Change your patterns. Remove access. Exit like someone who doesn't need them to understand, just needs them gone. In psychology, this tactic is called strategic silence. It isn't avoidance, it's a protective boundary. You're no longer explaining yourself to people who never listened in the first place. You may be tempted to give them closure. Don't. What they really want is one more opportunity to re-enter your mind. One more round of attention. One more emotional doorway they can slip through. When you shut that down, not with rage, but with complete disengagement, you're doing the most powerful thing possible. You're becoming untouchable. Stoicism isn't passive, it's precise. It says, I no longer argue with chaos. I just remove myself from the noise. And when you do that, you don't just leave them. You leave the cycle that kept you small. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them feel the empty space where your energy used to be. Because when you exit without warning, you don't just leave the relationship. You reclaim the silence. And in that silence, they lose their power. Number 3. Disappearing without explanation is the clearest answer you'll ever give. People who respected your boundaries never needed an explanation. People who violated them don't deserve one. When you're entangled with a narcissist, the instinct to explain is strong. You want to be understood. You want them to finally get it. You want to walk away, knowing they've realized what they've done. But here's the truth. They already know. They just don't care. And the longer you try to explain your pain, the more they'll twist it into your fault. Disappearing without explanation isn't cruel. It's clarity in motion. It's a declaration, not of hate, but of finality. You are done. Not angry, not bitter, just done. And that, to a narcissist, is the one thing they can't handle. Because it's the only moment they don't get to spin the story. Stoicism teaches, a man should remove himself from what disturbs his peace, not explain why it disturbs him. That's the practice here. You don't need to justify why your dignity is non-negotiable. You don't need to draft the perfect goodbye. You don't owe a thesis on your trauma. You leave, and the absence speaks. Think of Michelle, 36, from Austin. After 3 years in a relationship that left her emotionally hollow, she told herself she would leave as soon as he admitted he was wrong. But every time she tried to explain her needs, he spun it into her being too sensitive, too dramatic, or just trying to start a fight. One day she didn't explain. She just packed, She blocked. She vanished. 2 weeks later, she got an email. "You didn't even give me a chance to talk." She smiled and deleted it. That email wasn't regret. It was control, disguised as confusion. When you disappear without explaining, you're drawing a non-negotiable line. My boundaries are not up for discussion. My silence is not an opening. My departure is the conclusion. The reason this works is because narcissists expect you to play your role. The one where you justify your decisions, seek fairness, try to leave the right way. But there is no right way to leave someone who kept hurting you. There is only the way that sets you free. Psychologically, this shift is called cutting off the narrative loop. Your brain wants to close the story, to make it make sense. But with toxic people, that loop never ends. They'll rewrite it every time you speak. So the most powerful ending is no ending, just a full stop. No response, no post, no final message, just your absence. Want to practice this? Start with the following. 1. Write the explanation you wanted to send, but don't send it. Burn it, delete it, or keep it as a reminder that you no longer need to be heard by someone who never listened. 2. Make a clean break in your behavior. Change routines. Mute or block accounts. Avoid common places of emotional reopening. Every small withdrawal is part of the greater disappearance. 3. Speak your clarity to someone who can actually hold it. A friend, a therapist, a journal. Give your truth a witness, but not the person who weaponized it. A Stoic doesn't run from emotion, but they don't feed fires that burn without purpose. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." That starts when you stop offering your voice to someone who used it as a mirror for their ego. You may fear they'll misunderstand you. Let them. You may fear they'll tell others you were cold. Let them. They created the narrative when they disrespected your humanity. Now, they can sit with silence and wonder why it finally fell on them. Because here's the truth, no one tells you. The clearest message you'll ever send isn't shouted. It's your absence, uninterrupted, unexplained. And when you do that, something shifts, not just in them, but in you. You become the kind of person who doesn't beg to be seen, who doesn't trade truth for approval, who doesn't need their closure, because your clarity was never theirs to give. You don't have to slam the door. You just have to walk through it and never come back. That's not revenge. That's realignment. That's what Stoicism looks like in love. No drama, no explanations, just a boundary they can no longer cross. Number 4. Silence is the deepest cut for someone who feeds on attention. A narcissist doesn't fear your anger. They don't mind your tears. They can even endure your rage, because it still means one thing. You're engaging. You're still on the hook. You're still giving them oxygen. And they feed on that. Attention is their currency. It doesn't matter if it's love, pain, or chaos. If it's focused on them, it fuels them. But silence, real, sustained, impenetrable silence, that's not a lack of communication. It's a withdrawal of power. You're no longer feeding the system. You've stepped outside their reach. And for someone who survives by keeping you emotionally activated, that absence isn't emptiness. It's starvation. Stoicism doesn't teach you to scream louder. It teaches you to close the door, cleanly, finally, quietly. As Seneca wrote, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. And in this case, to live without reacting, without justifying, without giving them one more drop of energy. That's where your power begins. Let's ground this in a real, vivid example. Example 1. The empty seat. Tyler, 38, from Florida, had been in a 3-year relationship with a narcissist who thrived on conflict. Every time he tried to walk away, she pulled him back in with emotional outbursts, accusations, crying spells, and threats that painted her as the victim. And he always took the bait. One day, he made a different decision. He walked into their apartment while she was at work, packed quietly, left the key, no note, blocked her number, disappeared. She called his friends, his family, sent long emails full of rage and pleading, but she got nothing back. Silence. Not the kind of silence that begs for reaction, but the kind that says, "I've already left, and you don't get access anymore." She spiraled. Weeks later, she left voicemails sobbing, then angry, then indifferent, then sobbing again. Tyler didn't answer. That silence, it broke the loop, because what she feared most wasn't him being angry. It was him being gone. Example 2. No encore. Sophia, 33, from Chicago, had a partner who needed constant emotional stimulation. If things were calm, he'd provoke something. He'd flirt just enough to make her jealous, bring up her insecurities in conversation, create chaos to stay the center of attention. One night, after yet another pointless fight, he smirked and said, "You're not going anywhere. You always come back." She looked at him, didn't speak, didn't cry, just walked into the next room, packed, left, and never texted again. No threats, no closure, no dramatic exit, just a door shutting. 2 days later, he posted passive-aggressive stories, then started tagging her, then called her sister. She said nothing. 3 weeks later, she got a message. "I didn't think you'd actually disappear." She read it, didn't respond. That silence, it wasn't emptiness, it was a statement. You no longer have access to my energy. This is the Stoic weapon, stillness, not as weakness, but as clarity sharpened into action. Narcissists create noise to drown out your instincts, but once you go quiet, once you stop answering their games, once you stop explaining your hurt, you become unreadable. And unreadable means unmanageable. That terrifies them. How do you practice this? Remove your emotional signature. No angry texts, no late-night voice notes, number half-hearted, just checking in messages. Every reply is a thread, and silence cuts the whole rope. 2. Reroute your expression. Write in a journal what you wish you could say. Paint it. Scream it into a pillow. But do not send it. Your healing belongs to you, not to their inbox. 3. Get support, but off stage. Talk to a therapist, a trusted friend, but don't make your healing a performance for them to monitor. Narcissists watch for signs of relevance. Your silence tells them they've become irrelevant. Science backs this up. In emotional abuse recovery, no-contact strategies consistently outperform confrontation or closure-seeking in terms of long-term healing. Why? Because silence allows the nervous system to reset. No more being hijacked by the hope of change. No more being dragged back into drama, dressed as reconciliation. Stoicism calls for inner stillness. And in relationships with narcissists, silence isn't avoidance. It's mastery. It's the point where you stop negotiating your worth. Stop handing out explanations to people who never deserved your vulnerability, and simply exit the game. You're not stonewalling. You're preserving. You're not playing cold. You're keeping warm for someone who actually knows how to hold you. So when they try to bait you, stay still. When they poke for reaction, stay silent. When they say, "You owe me an answer," just know you gave it when you said nothing. Because the loudest boundary is the one they can't argue with. And that, for someone who feeds on attention, is the cut that never stops bleeding. Number 5, you don't need to block them. Just live like they never existed. To a narcissist, being erased from your world is worse than being hated. Hate still ties you to them. Anger still feeds the connection. The moment you start living as if they were never part of your life, that's the moment they lose their grip. Because for them, attention, any attention, is oxygen. And the most brutal form of power you can reclaim isn't vengeance, it's invisibility. But let's be clear, this is not about pretending. It's not about playing games or acting unbothered while secretly checking their Instagram every night. This is about becoming emotionally unavailable to the idea of them. Not blocking them because you're scared or bitter, but simply because they are no longer relevant to where your life is going. Still, let's speak honestly, because this is Victory Stoic, not fantasy talk. If you're not there yet emotionally, if your boundaries are still fragile, it's okay to block, temporarily or permanently, not to punish them, but to protect yourself. It takes strength to ignore a narcissist, but it takes even more strength to admit, I'm not strong enough right now to stay neutral, so I will remove the option completely. Think of it like this. Stoicism doesn't mean you're cold. It means you're clear about what you're capable of handling without losing your center. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In this case, if blocking helps you not spiral back into a toxic loop, do it. Let them think whatever they want. They always did anyway. Let's look at real-life contrast. Case 1. No contact, no noise. Michael, 40, from Boston, decided not to block his ex after ending things with a textbook narcissist. He didn't feel triggered by her posts anymore. He muted her, unfollowed mutual friends, and when she messaged him on his birthday, he didn't open it. Not because he wanted her to see he was strong, but because he simply no longer needed to hear what she had to say. She faded into the background noise of life. That's what indifference looks like. Not acting cold, just not acting at all. Case 2. Temporary block for peace. Cynthia, 35, from Oakland, wasn't there yet. Her ex would send late-night "I miss you" messages, then post photos with someone new the next day. Every time she spiraled, anger, confusion, self-blame. So she blocked him, not to erase him, but to regain herself. She told her therapist, "I need a blackout period to remember who I am without his voice in my head." 6 months later, she unblocked, not to reconnect, but because she no longer cared. That's progress. That's strength. That's real Stoic healing. You don't hide from the world. You just own when you're ready to face it again. Now let's break it down as a practice. 1. If you're emotionally stable and untriggered, don't block. Erase. Don't talk about them. Don't follow their life. Don't check mutual friends pages. Make them socially irrelevant. That's deeper than blocking. 2. If you're still shaky, give yourself permission to block. Set a calendar. Reminder. 30 days, 60 days. Tell a trusted friend. Let the boundary be a healing tool, not a permanent cage. 3. Rebuild your identity in their absence. Update your space. Change routines. Go new places. The brain needs contrast. Let your life look different from the version of you who used to orbit their chaos. Psychologically, this aligns with neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on new behaviors. Every time you don't react, don't check, don't respond, you build new pathways. You reprogram your mind to stop seeing them as relevant. And with enough time, they stop feeling real. Not because you're in denial, but because they're no longer part of the operating system. And that's what truly terrifies a narcissist. Not that you hate them, not that you blocked them, but that they're no longer part of the story, that you kept going, and the story got better without them. So don't announce your silence. Don't explain your absence. Just live, fully, freely, without them at the center. Because one day, they'll look at your life and realize they're not missed, not needed, not even noticed. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. And it's the loudest kind of peace you'll ever speak. You've made it to the end of part 1, but the journey is far from over. What you've just heard are powerful principles for reclaiming yourself, breaking free from toxic control, and walking away with the kind of strength that cannot be faked. But we're not finished yet. There are still 5 more principles that will push you further. Insights just as essential, just as cutting, and just as transformative. This video has already run long, so we'll continue in part 2. That's where I'll reveal the final 5 traits that solidify your evolution, sharpen your resilience, and anchor you so deeply within yourself that no one else's chaos can ever touch you again. If you're ready to take this to the next level, make sure you don't miss part 2. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to break free. And drop a comment below. Your command, your turning point, or your declaration. Say it with clarity. My exit is the end. My silence is my power. Or share your own story of reclaiming yourself. This is Victory Stoic, where strength is not performed, but built. Where silence becomes power, and where your evolution speaks louder than any words ever could. Stay tuned for part 2.